Like me and Logan hid like in like this. It's kind of like a hilly region of the entire, but it's still like wooded, you know, like it just had a lot of dips in it, and we kind of lay on the ground and like covered ourselves a little bit in leaves, just like 14-year-old ingenuity, like, but we're wearing normal clothes, you know, and Justin ran off in the distance and like laid down on the ground and got his little tripod out and was like set up, you know,
sniper mode.
like he was ready to go, you know, it was great, but like they had Evan showed up and was like walking through there like looking for us, and he started like getting a little irritated and started like yelling like, "Come on guys, you know, like we can't look for you all day long." He's like, "Just come out so we can shoot you." And like me and Logan popped up, just started firing on him and just destroyed him. And he shot us back because he's a jerk. He was a jerk at the time. Well, he's a lot better now. But he got mad and shot us back. But we wiped and kept playing because we had shot him first, you know. So you know, like we kind of started like moving around and moving along to go somewhere else, and Anthony, Evan's older brother, also had just as much nice equipment, you know, popped out of nowhere and started firing at us and just drilled Logan all down his right side, like all down his right side.
Of shots.
Like, but it shot fast enough that he just like
just held it.
Yeah, just moved up and down like he was trying to hit both of us. But Logan just took all the shots, and poor guy, he was like just fell on the ground and he was like, "I'm hit." And, like he just laid there for a little while, but like it's fleeting. He was fine a little later, but I just took off into the woods. I'm talking just like straight up like terror in my eyes, just like sprinting through the woods.
PTSD moment kicking in.
So I just took off, man, and like Justin was still laying over there, and Anthony didn't see him yet, and it was just perfect because Anthony was like, he come to chase me, and Justin doing doo-doo, and just like he's like, I just hear him in the back. I'm like, I'm out, you know, like I'm like, oh nice. But it was like 3 seconds later, it's like Justin stands up and he's like, I got him, right? And he's like really excited, and I was excited for him but I was still running, right? I was still in terror mode. But like,
it's not gonna stop. There's other people
so
right there.
there was like one guy left, and we had 2, so I'm like, okay, like it's an uphill battle for him, right? Like we got this, and it wasn't like probably like 3 to 5 seconds after I thought that I look over at Justin, and he's like, yeah, I got him, like, and then like out of nowhere, the I think it was like their uncle or like their cousin or something come out of the woods and was just like firing like hard at Justin and hit him right in the balls. And like that is not a fleeting pain at that point anymore.
No.
Like he got hit.
Be sick for a little while.
He got hit a few more times on his way down. Like we knew he had gotten hit, right? And it was just a terrible moment because he just went straight down. I could just hear him just screaming. Like I went right back into terror mode, right? Like just started running again, and I was all I was good at. You know, I was really athletic back then, so like I was just like I was real fast. I just started running. That we had like the gear that we had that day would basically just consisted of just our normal attire, and then we had like goggles basically, and then our guns, and like that was basically all we had. But from then on, Justin started wearing a cup as well, because I tell you, like I think 4 times he got shot in the balls that day. I don't know what it was, but he every time somebody was starting to shoot at him, it was always just like going for the gut shot or something, and the balls just dropped, you know, just enough. You know, every single time. But whenever I started taking off again away from him, because I'm just completely outgunned at this point, it's an uphill battle now for me at this point. So I just took off, and like I found this nice like thorn bush for some reason, and was like, I just like fucking like
follow me in here.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm like a wounded animal hiding in like a dangerous area so that the predator won't come get me, and I'm like hiding in there, right? And like during my running, like I was not worried about my gun at all. I was just worried about not getting shot because I wanted to win. So I just kept running. And by the time I got to where I was at and started like crawling, I got in there and I'm like, okay, like let's check how many paintballs I have left so I know I can shoot this guy whenever he like, you know, comes at me.
Along.
And I look down and my lid on my feeder is open, and I'm like, oh no, I hope all of them didn't fall out. So I look in there and I'm like, oh no, all of them did fall out, right? So like, this is awful. Where the whole gear thing comes in, right? Because they had like belts on,
belts
had
with
pods.
the extra feeders.
Yeah. Well, they're just pods. They're about this big, and they're just pods that you can pop open and you pour them into your feeder, and then you can just toss the pod wherever you're at, or you can put it back in your belt, depending on how much time you have, you know. And he had like a belt with like 3 extra pods on him, and then he had his feeder, which assumably was pretty full still because he was not sprinting and
he probably did not lose
anywhere. You know, he only shot like probably like maybe like 12, 13 balls at Justin, you know, where he was at. So he's good to go, and like I just hear him walking around everywhere. He's like looking for me, and he's like getting closer, and I'm like, oh shit,
what am I gonna do?
And he's just walking around. He's like, man, I can't find this guy. How far did he run? Like he's talking to himself, and I'm just in here just kind of like, well, hopefully he doesn't find me. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like kind of like panic searching for like maybe some paintballs that fell out nearby, and I'm like looking around, and like I go to like peek my head out of this bush, right? And he's like right here, and I'm like, oh, like gonna like scoot back, like hope he didn't see me, you know. And like he didn't, because he kept walking, and like I just like walked by, and for some reason like my video game playing dumbass decided I'm gonna pickpocket one of these pods off this guy, and I'm just gonna run so that I can reload, because I know he's got mine. Great. And like I'm like sneaking up, right? And it was like your stereotypical moment where like you get real close and then like you stop worrying about where your feet are landing, because now you have your objective you're trying to steal. So like I got close, and it's just from this tree branch I stepped on, and he fucking just around at me. I just dove trying to get away from him. And he was like, he shot and missed a few times, but like he just lit up my back, just my entire back.
I wish just for you we could go back in time just so you could successfully take one of his pods.
That would have been
even if you would have got shot afterwards, like you went to like pop it open, that's what tipped him off.
Yeah. It was a really terrifying moment actually, because. But then we ended up like building like forts out there too, and for some reason my brain was like, stop running, dude, go into one of those forts.
Hang out in the forts.
And like just shoot from in there, and it'll be a great time. So like that this is like months later that we get these forts built up out there, and like they're not like forts, they're just kind of like makeshift buildings that are missing like one entire side of them so that you can walk in. There's like no doors, right? It's just literally walls that have like open spaces in them for us to shoot out of. And I was in there one time. Justin's there, Logan's there, all his, like uncles and cousins are there, and we have like, I think it's like 5v5 at this point. Like we're doing like actual like, capture the flag type stuff at this point, and we put ours in the middle of this fort, and we're all like, there was like, I think it was like me and like a couple other people, and then Justin's like out there in some random wooded area, like laying on the ground like normal,
doing
like,
his thing.
yeah, and he's like, he's got a good view on us, and they just kind of like walked up with their superior firepower. And just wiped the shit out of us, dude. Like Justin, like at some point, like I'm like the only one left in here, and I'm like, I don't know if Justin's still alive. I don't know. Like in my head, like where this is a life and death situation. I'm like really role playing it hard. I'm like, I don't know if Justin's still alive. He's like, he's definitely got shot in the balls by now. Like he is dead for sure. Like I'm talking like maybe like just like 10 seconds after that, I hear footsteps and I turn around and it's Justin. And I almost lit his ass up, and I'm like, dude, you're not dead yet? And he's like, no, I'm fine. He's like walks in there and he's like, but I did get this the other day, he like pulls out a grenade.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah. And he's like, but you got a better throwing arm than me, so you throw it. And I'm like, okay, so how does it work? I've never used one. He's like trying to talk me through it, and I did it, and I threw it over while they're all like sprinting up on us, right? Because they just saw Justin go in there. So like, we get them now, we're good, right? Because there's only 2 left, and they're both in the fort. And I don't know how many we had even shot at that point. I can't remember, but I know it was not good for us. It was another uphill battle for sure. Situation as opposed to
superior firepower, my ass. I also remember in that game though, someone had like before we started, Colton was putting on the a jumpsuit for like a pilot, just to play the role. And one of the judges is walking away after Colton gets his stuff off, and he like just drops like a 6-shooter. He's like, "Whoops! Hope no one gets a hold of that." And Colton picks it up and just like shoves it inside of his jumpsuit. Yeah. And I'm like, hell yeah, that'll make things interesting. So when the enemy team eventually did breach into our building, some guy walks in there, and I'm like, I think I was just filming at this part. I think I have it on film if I looked hard enough. But this guy walks in there and is like, all right, you're coming with us. And Colton's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. And I guess the guy goes to open the door, and I'm outside, and I hear the guy inside go, guys, is he supposed to have a gun? And no one heard him. Like, I'm just at the building just filming. I'm just hysterical laughing about this because there's like 3 other guys like making sure no one respawns and tries to come back and take the building, and it's just the one guy inside. All of a sudden, you just hear the gun go bop, and one of the guys at the door go, "What was that?" You heard the kid and the guy inside go, "He did have a gun."